What up, guys? Welcome back. I'm Thickles. This is Interchange. You picked it. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to join the Discord. We got map overview. We got hotspots. We got pathing. Let's get it. Okay, so let's get this part out of the way. This is really two maps in one. There's outside of the mall and there's inside the mall. And I kind of like to think as the parking garage as a connector between the two. And the frustrating thing is they play completely different, whether you like it or not. If your whole goal is to make it inside, then that can be a whole challenge in itself. So we're going to talk about outside first, and then we're going to move inside. Alright, so the main areas outside of the mall are what I call highway, scav camp, signs/containers, Emercom, and power station. You can include the parking lot if you want to, just as a death trap. This map has a ton of cover and blind spots. It is impossible to clear every angle, so it is important on this map to know where you're most likely going to run into PMCs and at what point into the raid. Most of the action outside is going to happen in the first opening minutes of raid, and then again towards the end of the raid as people start heading towards their extracts. Because a lot of the pathing gets routed through the same areas as you move around the map, if you watched my last videos where I talked about player timing, I feel like Interchange is a little different, and instead of knowing player timing for certain parts of the map and when players are most likely to roll through there, Interchange has more of like a heat map, that as you move from zone to zone your risk either increases or decreases. Knowing where the choke points are and knowing where you're free to move around makes the map feel like less like a horror movie. Outside, players that spawn near power station tend to rotate to power, where there is almost always a fight, making power station a hot spot early on in the raid. Highway also has a high chance to find a PMC at the start of raid while moving towards your intended entrance. Scav camp is more of an area where you kind of just move through. There's not as much risk here. It's not too often you just get completely blindsided by an attack at this location. The sign/container area has some pretty good action early as both of those spawns move in towards the garage area. And lastly, Emercom can have some early gunfights, but it's mostly going to be an extract area. One big issue I have with the map is if you want to be inside, and that's what you kit for, you still have to make it there. And because players usually take the most direct pathing, it's usually pretty easy to get a very early spawn fight. Starting at highway, as you move towards the parking lot, there's a spawn that happens in the field back in the woods, and there's also more along the top side of the map. These spawns can actively look for each other and make it hard to get inside when moving across open area. The best thing to do is clear your angles and move with a purpose. Move from cover to cover and don't stay in the open too long. At the starter raid, the roads leading towards power station can have people rotating towards power. And the thing about power is sometimes the fight can be immediate or it can be delayed like 5-7 minutes. People need to get there first. The scav camp spawns are pretty good, as if you're pretty quick, you can usually make a sprint and make it inside without much of an issue. And down on the bottom of the map towards the sign and the containers is another rough pathing area. There's a spawn that's usually in the corner of the map, and there's another spawn on the right side of the containers, typically in between Emercom and the sign. And if both parties take a direct path, they can meet either outside or just underneath in the parking lot, making it almost 100% guaranteed fight. Before we head inside, let's talk about the significance of the parking garage. If you're having a hard time making it inside before you get head eyes or naped, then the parking garage will become your new best friend. A lot of people get confused with this area so they don't go underground, but it's actually very easy to remember. The only area that you need to cross the hole in the wall is to get towards Emercom. Everything else is completely reachable from the left side of garage. Not only is it great for moving around, there's also a ton of entrances taking you up to the upper floors, making it very easy to get inside near the area you need to be. And really, outside of the main PvP areas, garage is pretty boring, which just so happens to make it the perfect rotation area. Really, the main areas of conflict are going to be on the left side entrances, all located near the escalators, since they're a main entrance point into the building. And the only other part is really the sunken floor leading towards the middle of the mall. And once the opening part of raid is over, the only garage hotspot is the sunken floor for the most part, making it pretty easy to move around. Before you head in raid, look at the positioning of the garage in relationship to where you want to go on the map, and see what your closest entrance is taking you upstairs. You'd be surprised how close you can pop up. But not only does garage make it easy to move around and make it easier to get in to start a raid, let's say you have your task complete and it's time to leave. You can hit one of those same descents into garage and now move towards your extract with less risk. Okay, so moving inside. This is where things get tricky. The interior is really broken up between 4 main areas. You have Idea on the top side of the map, or power side. You have the mall located in the middle by the parking lot side. On the south side, you have Ali, or the Emercom side. And the last is Goshen, which is going to be located behind the mall in between Ali and Idea. With the recent patch, the interior lighting has gotten a lot better, but there are still way too many angles and cubbies waiting for somebody to be camping or crab walking in. Because of this, it's important to know the different ways to move around the map and what are the least used routes. But this map has different pathing because it's inside of a building. So there's a lot of doors and hallways that you can move from, say, to like Ali into Goshen without having to go through the main walkway. This means that regardless of why a player might be in that particular raid, they can really end up at any part of the interior at any time. Knowing what areas are hotspots is a better way to predict where you'll have an engagement, so let's take a look at the map as a heat map instead. Okay, so we'll start at the start of raid being outside, then move inside. At the start of raid, there are a few spots where outside gunfights can occur at the start of raid. We already spoke about Power Station being a hotspot early for the first like 5 to 10 minutes of raid. Usually if you stay to loot, by the time you're done looting, you'll have a gunfight that will occur. Up towards Highway, as the parties converge towards the parking lot area as they're moving towards the building, there are pretty predictable angles that you can look for to catch runners out in the open. If you hang out inside Scav Camp, there can be a fight that happens either on the top side or bottom side, depending on what side of the camp you spawn. And keep in mind that on the south side, there is a spawn that is visible to the guy that's on the bottom road. I don't usually end up with a fight at Scav Camp, but when I do, it's usually more on the bottom side spawns. Really, the only other hotspot outside is going to be the ramp section for Emercom. This area does depend on the pathing that the spawns on the side of Emercom take. If they head into the garage, then you're not going to have a fight at the ramps. Once you reach the garage, that doesn't mean you're out of the woods yet. There are a few entrances that I love to have an early fight at. Starting at the top of the map, there are 2 entrances by Power that often have fighting that spills over from inside Power Station. This underground area can be hot early, but it won't be after like 5 to 10 minutes. On the front side of the mall, like I was saying, each entrance has escalators that is leading towards the building, meaning that fights can pop off at any of these entrances as people try to move up and towards their objective. The bottom 2 entrances are my favorite, as there is almost always 2 parties that meet as they converge underground where the scavs spawn. And kind of like with the power area, these parts of the garage are really only dangerous during the opening rotations, and then they calm down pretty quick. The only area that can be a hotspot at almost any part of raid is going to be the hole in the ground, and that's mainly because it leads into mall and it's right dead center in the map. As we move inside Idea, this long hallway has some of my favorite fights early. You can make the run from power and get inside and set up on the front side as you wait for the people near the registers to move in. But after that initial opening fight, this location is pretty slow. The only other hotspot for Idea is going to be the front register area because it leads from the main area into the mall. Now once you get into the mall, things do get a little bit tricky. This intersection near the Emercom room is a pretty busy area for gunfights, but I feel like most fights end up on the front side of the mall as people don't like pushing down the middle. And of course, the area around the hole in the ground can have fighting all raid, either just underground or on that first level. Upstairs in the mall, there's really only the tech that's located in the bottom left, and the main lobby cross section as it has your longest views. A little trick though is whether you're upstairs or downstairs, learning to use these back rooms to move around can put you in a very good spot to catch a squad by surprise. Once you make it inside Ali, the area in front by the cash registers has most of this area's fighting. There's not much in this area besides a few tasks and the kill spawn. Just because most of the action does happen up front, you can run into somebody rotating in the back area from time to time, so don't treat this area as completely empty. Truthfully, there's not really much to cover in Ali since there's really either a gunfight early because kill spawned or someone's trying to clear out the scavs, and every so often some of the fighting can spill into the shelving areas. Other than that, it's pretty slow, mostly empty. Now Goshen does have a few areas that are well traveled. Most people I feel get their food from the top side, making this a pretty hot spot early as people try to make it here and load up before other teams show up. And the middle of Goshen is going to be your most open area, so you can get a lot of gunfights that are going to be happening if you push through the open areas. But even with this area being open, most of your gunfights right here are either going to be towards the back or towards the front near the cash registers. Another area of mention is going to be jump over towards the bottom. This area just inside the bottom has some pretty decent loot, and people that do move through here do check to see if it's been looted pretty much all raid, so if you're moving through, just be careful. As I move into pathing, I'm going to leave the exterior alone since there's not as much area and you can decide what part of the map you want to enter on. I will, however, cover the exterior in more depth in the spawn deep dive video that will be coming out next. Now inside the building, most of the common pathing areas is going to be on the outer edges. Inside Idea, the main pathing is going to be along these long edges as people move from the back of Idea towards the front as they head towards the mall. Just like in the hotspot section, this front area is going to be your most common area for PMC fights. Mainly due to the fact that if you want to go into the mall, you got to at least cross this section. Once you actually do reach the mall, it does make it a little difficult because, I mean, it's a mall. There's a lot of different ways that you can move through this area. And to not make this section super long, covering just each and every angle, I'm going to outline the main areas that people travel the most. And as I'm sure you guessed it, is going to be the main walkways. It's mostly going to be the main connectors, so if you're able to stay off to the side in the halls in between the stores, you can catch a lot of people by surprise. Again, Ali is going to continue the trend with these paths being the most used. In every part of this map, people like to try and stay out of the middle areas as much as possible. So moving along the back wall as well as in between the cash registers is going to be your most common areas over here. Goshen is also going to be along the main walkways and along the walls. But with there being these loading areas with very easy travel, either leading you up towards the top of Idea or down towards Ali. One of your biggest advantages for this map is going to be knowing the map really well and knowing all the stairwells and doors that move you around to the different sections of the map. Like for example, this door that moves you through the bottom of Goshen out towards the bottom of Emercom. It allows you to move through the map without having to go through that dangerous middle section. Goshen has a lot of great connectors that either lead you towards the mall or around the mall if you're using the hall entrances and trying to get around the action. Interchange can be a difficult map because there's a lot of uncertainty on where people are going to be. But starting with where people are most likely to be will allow you to rotate and put yourself into a better position when a gunfight does actually pop off. Remember, it's always better to be the one to start the fight than it is to be opened up on first. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This map is a little hard to put into a template since you're inside and have a lot of options. If you're looking for more specific info, don't worry, the spawn guide is going to be coming out next, which is going to cover the first 5 or so minutes of raid, making your future raids even easier to get inside. But before I get out of here, thank you if you made it this far. I only have 2 things. 1, there is a Discord server, the info is going to be in the description. There's not a ton of people yet, but anybody wanting to be a part and join the community, I'd love to have you join. And second is I now have a stream schedule. I will be streaming every morning at 6 AM PST until further notice. If that's too early for you, I understand. That's the only time that I can 100% commit to while I'm working 2 full-time jobs. In the future, hopefully the goal would be to go to full-time and extend the hours to something that's a little bit more extended. But that is it for me. Thank you guys again. This channel and community is growing and it's all thanks to you guys. Without you, there are no videos, there are no streams, so thank you. My name is Nicholas, this has been Interchange, and I'll see you in raid.